Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, glad to know you're still there with us. And if you're just joining us, you are the right place at the right time. We've got you covered. Earlier, we have a conversation talking about the impact of Forex intervention and the need for the monetary authority. At what point will it be necessary? We had Mukhtar who gave justice to that. And now let's shift our attention to our second big story for today, which is to look at the impact of the tax identification number, on bank transactions. There's a new bill proposing the compulsory use of TIN, what you call tax identification number, when it comes to opening bank accounts and also doing other financial transactions. The question is, what necessitated this initiative, and what will be the impact for you, watching your bank customer, what will be the impact of this new development? If this bill sees the light of the day, what will be the impact where you're being required to provide your TIN before opening bank account or engaging in other financial transactions? Let's shift the conversation to Dr. Titilayo Fowokan, who joins us virtually. She's the president of Association of Fraud Examiners, Southwest Chapter of Nigeria. Dr. Titilayo Fowokan, glad to have you join us once again this morning. Good to see you again.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you today?
Now, since this news broke, Nigerians have been wondering, a few days ago, the news grabbed this headline, was trending, if I may put it that way. And Nigerians are concerned what necessitated this initiative where individuals will be required to provide TIN, what you call tax identification number, before opening accounts or engaging in other financial transactions. Give us a picture of what this is all about and what could be the impact for individuals who need to engage in financial transactions.
Okay, the issue about TIN is not something new. It's a project that I've started even when we started doing the Finance Act reviews, starting from the 2019 Finance Act up to date. And that is in terms of making sure that everybody is compliant with their tax obligations. At times, we overlook individuals and say that individuals don't do so much economic activity. But we find out that quite a lot of people are now doing so many economic activities that are not within the tax net and are also not captured. Now, the easiest way to be able to track this is through banking transactions, because whether you like it or not, you are either using a POS, you are either using a transfer to do all these payments and the likes. And most people have also moved away from the use of cash, unlike before. When we had the CBN cashless policy, that migrated a lot of people to move away from the use of cash. So the banking system now has a track of all these financial transactions. Now, and also quite a lot of people are not in the tax net, especially because individuals are actually captured by the state internal revenue services of the 36 states of the federation. And one other thing is that only the people that are non-resident individuals that are captured by the Federal Capital Territory, by the Federal Land Revenue Service, and then the FCTIRS also handles anybody in the Capital Territory. So with this project, it means that everybody, whether they like it or not, we have an identification number, but it comes with its own challenges also. And that is, how do you reach the people in the rural areas? Because you need to have a network to even do banking transactions. So some people are even out of the banking system. So what is the plan to even get these people involved? When you're saying that everybody should have a TIN, can it really be everybody? We spoke recently about the areas where we have challenges with the rural areas, the flooded areas, where insurgency is affecting them. We also have rural areas where there are no networks and things like that. So is it going to be an holistic thing? Now, the whole essence of this tax education number is to ensure that we have everybody in the tax net. And we're saying, let's even see a lot of the individuals coming in first, and then we can now start tracking their business transactions, because some people are even operating not within the register business, like our not all the micro businesses are registered, the market women, but they all, one way or the other, use the bank to transact their business. So how do we now ensure we capture them? States are also looking at internally generated revenue. The use of the tax allocation number is a way of even tracking those who are registered for tax, those who are doing economic activity that they need to pay tax on. So the whole essence of this is to bring in as many people into the tax net through the banking system, which has now captured the law. We have those who use the fintech products like the PalmPay, the OPay, and the likes. So we already have the information that people have, the knowledge of people about the banking system is now wide. And so the best is to see how this system will be used to track people that are not in the tax net. And this is also a way of coming up with a regime that will be able to apply the tax rules on individuals, as many as can fall into the net. So this, from my own perspective, this is what the government is trying to do in terms of shifting away from, everybody's looking at oil, we're not looking at tax, shifting away from oil to tax revenue generation. And there is the only way you can even track this and have proper records is when there's a unique identifier for each individual. And that's where this issue about tax allocation number through the banking system is coming up. But the challenges may be the inclusiveness of people in the rural areas or less advantaged areas. Thank you.
All right, the motive sounds good, but let's look at, will this not further complicate the processes of opening bank accounts or engaging in financial transactions, create what I call bottleneck, knowing fully well that the processes of getting TIN, what you popularly call TIN in Nigeria, it's somehow not that flexible. Will it not further complicate issues or the processes involved in banking transactions and other financial transactions?
There's nothing that you're starting new that will not have its own bottlenecks. That's the way I see it. But for this to be implemented properly, it would have been good for there to be proper system in place, because this means that people's transactions will be stored. This means that we have long queues again in the bank, just like when we did the NIN linking. When people now have to do their NIN, do the BVN, we saw the way people were queuing and sleeping in the banking system, in the banks, to be able to do this. This is going to be like another one. I quite agree with you. This is going to be another way whereby people will now have to go and queue and do that. So for government to do this effectively, there must be a phase. I think it should be phased. Not that you tell everybody within a particular time to go and do this. They can decide to face it like maybe today, a particular period be set aside for the market women or for the micro businesses. A day might be set aside for workers. So, or a week set aside for workers, probably now also on the workers' side, do it by sector. Because if you say everybody should do it within a particular time, then we're going to be creating a situation of chaos. And there must be a time range within which people will be allowed to do this. Otherwise, we will not be able to achieve. So what that means is that while this is going on, then they should still be allowed to do some parallel run in terms of their business, given a time frame. Let's assume that we've given, we give people in the markets this week or month to do it. So it means that for that period, they're not going to be having problems with any other one not in that sector. Others can continue with their businesses while they face it on a face by face. What we've always seen is that when such things like this happen, we just want everybody to do it at the same time, and then it stalls all the business. Now, apart from that, the banks will have to step up. I see a bit of a challenge, because even as it is now, once the banks are having problem with their platform, everything shuts down, and then people now start struggling with their business. But if it's something that has to be done in other climes, in fact, every country, developed country that we talk about, they have data. Everybody passes through the banking system. They have the data of everyone, every transaction you do. Even when you go to the shops and they do things, when they put in their teller machine in the UK or anywhere, and they are putting in these transactions, they already have this recorded and it goes through the banking system and they have a unique identifier. So I think instead of now saying you use TIN and every bank, we already have NIN, we have BVN. These are data that can be used rather than make everybody to go and queue up and start doing the TIN. The authorities can actually have a relation, a linking. For instance, if you want to do your tax registration now with state, let me take Lagos State for instance. If you go online and want to do a tax registration, it will ask you things about, you ask your BVN and some other details. Quite a lot of people have this, especially for those who are in the banking system. So they can, first of all, deal with those ones that already have information that just need to get the TIN, and then the authorities can assign TIN to those ones once they can confirm they are already in the banking system. That phase will go. Then they can now start with another phase and take it maybe state by state, region by region, phase it out. Otherwise, it will cause chaos and it will affect businesses. Good intention, but how it is implemented matters.
For those in the informal sector who also pay tax, maybe by way of buying tickets that are brought to them from the local government council and in whatever way they pay their tax, but not through a formal means. And now everyone is mandated to obtain a tax identification number. Does this discourage the financial inclusion that the CBN is pursuing? The so much attachment of some documents or certain things that citizens should have to the opening of a bank account?
I don't think this will affect the CBN process. Like we were thinking, the CBN, whether you want to open an account or not, those documentation are standard. You still have to provide it. This is more like saying you need to have your identification number. And I believe that if there is a working relationship between CBN and the states, because the states have their platform. Now, a very good platform to get this done effectively is the Joint Tax Board. The Joint Tax Board is the body that ties all the states. That's the unifying body for all the states. And I know that the Joint Tax Board is the one championing the tax identification number for individuals, such that you have a unique identifier. So it is expected that the CBN will work with the Joint Tax Board to make this seamless. It would not affect the financial inclusion that the CBN is planning because it's a different process on its own. It should just not be an additional burden on people such that they are unable to do their financial transactions. And that's why I'm saying where the CBN is able to work with the Joint Tax Board, it's easier to implement because the Joint Tax Board, through its members, already have a database of individuals, and that will be done. Now, for those who are not already in the state, then it means that each state will now have to develop and devise it. For instance, all those things you talk about collecting, the tickets from local government, they're actually not taxes, because we have difference between taxes and levies. And that's why there's a definition of tax by the National Tax Policy 2017 as to what constitutes tax. Then we have levies. What they are paid to local government are levies. They are charges. And that's why they give them the tickets. Tax is actually based on your income. If you look at some of these tickets they buy, you use a space. I give you a ticket for using the space, not on the income they generate from that particular business they are doing. So there's a different thing between what the local government collects and what the state taxes are all about. So a different base, different scope. So I don't think it will affect the financial inclusion that the CBN is planning if there's a coordination. We seem to have data in different pockets of government agencies. And I believe that harmonization of data would make this process seamless as much as possible. Now, the question that we should be asking ourselves is, do we even know how many are the unbanked in the society? If we are unable to identify the unbanked, then it means that we may not even be able to identify those who are unbanked and don't have TIN, because you can only talk of TIN when you have a way of capturing the data. They will also have to ask ourselves a question in terms of the population data that we have? Do we have good population of those who are not who are within the rural areas and need to be reached? And this is where the state and local government needs to work together to be able to have a complete data of the population and the different strata that they belong to. That is, if these things are not done, I want to go to the TIN way, we'll probably be putting the cart before the horse. We must put the horse before the cart. Let's even be sure that the available data are being used to the maximum possible. A lot of people in the market don't even understand this TIN you're talking about. And for them to be able to go through that, the states needs to now join forces with the local government for education of the grassroots people. And that's how you can even have all this inclusion, financial inclusion, and everything that we're talking about. So I believe that it is not a job for CBN alone, it's a job for the state to work with CBN and the local government to be able to read the unbanked people, because those are the people that really this new process may affect much.
You made a distinction between levies and taxes. So for those in the informal sector, how then do they, or would they be able to pay tax if they've been paying levies and they've not had tax identification number? Does it mean that for some of them, they've not been paying tax? How would tax be collected from those in the informal sector? And what is the process of registering for a tax identification number and having it? Is it burdensome? Is it something that one can do in a day?
Registration. Let me start from registration for tax identification number is not a difficult thing to do, because the basic thing they will ask is your name, your data, possibly your date of birth, which I believe most people knows, and then probably your source of income. I'm doing business, I'm doing this. What the states have been doing, when we talk about distinguishing between levy and taxes, some people, majority of people in the informal sector don't understand the nitty-gritty of tax. What the states have done is to come up with what we call presumptive tax regime. Try to go down to the grassroots, the informal, like I will take Lagos State, for instance. They have an informal sector department who tries to break down tax to the informal sector participant, the market women, what it means, and how they can estimate, because they don't keep records, they don't keep books of accounts, they don't write down something that you say this is. So what they do is an estimate. So we have what we call presumptive tax regime, which is also in the tax law, and that is what to say in a week, what do you sell in a day, and then in a week, and then in a month, and then in a year, and then they can work it out. And then some states do what they call just minor contribution. Okay, every month we'll go to talk to the market women. We'll talk to them. They are able to now identify what they've sold, and then an amount is paid and is taken as tax. Now, I know Lagos State have what they call Idile Hub, where they try to educate people and try to make sure that the market women pay as little as they can and as much as they can realize based on the understanding of what their type of business is. Those who sell yam is different from pepper sellers, is different from that. Then we have people that are a bit semi-formal. They have a shop, they have a register they keep. For those ones, they can also be able to identify what they do and be able to identify the amount of tax they should be paying. There's a threshold, there's a minimum tax threshold for both the corporate entities as well as for business owners. So that is also an enlightenment. So a lot of enlightenment needs to come in terms of getting the informal sector to know the tax to pay and pay it at the right time and then move on. Well, there can't be a punitive measure like you do for corporates that understand the nitty-gritty of business like you want to do for them, because their level of education of this thing, understanding is not as high. So there needs to be more like a grassroots touch in educating them. And for instance, when you talk about the local government collect things like stall spaces that they use, slabs, is not really on their income. So they need to have an estimate of income. And this is an area where a lot of state internal revenue service have to do a lot of work to educate them and look at the best way to make sure that they pay the taxes. Some states have adopted a method of saying, if you are selling a particular market, we estimate that in a week you are selling up to this amount. So maybe weekly you pay something and we record for you. The FRS sometimes try to also do that through the Market Traders Association to come up with a way of ensuring that the informal sector are able to pay tax. And that's why they capped out their small business offices where they can educate this, like the Alaba market people and things like that. Now, a formal education in terms of record keeping is also necessary, because if they don't know what record to keep, they cannot be sure of their income. So there's a lot to be done. I think this issue about CIN for everybody is not going to be an easy project. Let's be sincere with ourselves, because there's a lot of gaps that needs to be filled. There's a lot that needs to be done before they can even start talking about this. Otherwise, it will be another chaos. People are already going through the pain of the fuel crisis. People are going through the pain of increase in the cost. Inflation is on the high side, and adding this to it will not be another pain on the people. We know the intention is to do the right thing, but the way we go about it would either make or mar the objective of the process. So I think it's something that needs to be looked into, and available means or data should have been explored before we start saying we want to put everybody in the box. It has to be faced.
All right. The delay, the inefficiency that often grades the process of getting TIN in Nigeria. I remember the last time I had to apply for one, it took me weeks, and that's just the situation here. Now, what can be done to ensure that this is efficient? And now that virtually every individual now is being mandated, if this bill becomes a reality, to provide TIN, what should be done, and then what will be the role of automation or technology here? Give us a picture of what plays out in other climes when it comes to the issue of technology in driving the process of getting tax identification number. How do we eradicate this delay and inefficiency that roots this process here in Nigeria?
Okay, it's unfortunate that we are facing what we're facing in this country, because we have resources. And that's why I will still talk about the fact that each of the tax authorities have moved into having technology platforms. But why is it not working? And that's the question we keep asking. And that is because there needs to be that willpower to ensure that money is not wasted. Government effort is not wasted. The tax authorities need to have dedicated staff to address this issue around tax identification number, if they are really serious about it. I know the FRS sometimes said we have customer-centric, we are now customer-centric, and people are still saying we are not seeing it. The states will say we are customer-centric. People are saying they are not seeing it. Now, the fact that we've done NIN, almost everybody has NIN. I don't expect that we should go and queue again. The information you need to have a tax identification number is already what you used to do your NIN. Now, even if you want to do NYC now, I'm aware that your NIN must agree to your name on your certificate and everything. We are already using data and technology platform to do that. Then it should not be different. So we should leverage on this. The fact that we have to register, registration for tax should be 1 day affair, less than a day. And so the tax authorities should now come together and look at what are the inefficiencies in the system, what is causing the bottleneck, remove this. I would recommend that they should have dedicated people that understands the system. And then, we also have a problem with the networks, that we go on the network and the thing is down. We should also be able to talk to the telecoms, the telecom provider, and I think Ministry of, Information needs to also come in to also ensure that we don't have this downtime that is going to cause a problem. So we must leverage as much as possible on the information that we already have. And I think technology-driven data is available. It's not something we're looking for. Like I said, we've done BVN, we've done NIN. Your international passport is also an information that we have. So for the people that are already in having this information, there shouldn't be an issue. So the focus should be on those who don't have it and have NIN. Those ones, we can easily, with their NIN, set their profile up for the TIN, and this shouldn't take time. It should be an upload. It should be a linking. What they need, well, I know there's also data protection regulation, which is also an area that there must be well matching, because if you are going to send my data to do something, you must get my consent as a data subject. That's also another area. So my advice is that all these different agencies of government should come together and see how we align all the pockets of information and data about taxpayers. I call everybody taxpayers because whether you like it or not, we pay one way or the other, so that they are all aligned and we don't have to go through this process again, trying to queue for TIN. It is, the information needed is already available. Government should just come up with how best to align them and make sure that that is the first stage that we adopt before going to individual community to do it themselves. Thank you.
On a final note, does it stop at having the tax identification number? What does this do for the FIRS in terms of revenue generation?
With the tax identification number, let me also clarify that for the FIRS, it's the tax identification number we're talking now for individuals will pay more for the states, because FIRS is more focused on the corporates, and so they already have their platform. But for the TIN, for the state, for the individuals, it will help the state to identify those who are doing economic transactions that are outside the tax net, and they'll be able to grab that in their different states and be able to sell them with notice this from your banking transaction, because they have access. The law allows them to get information on the banking transaction. So it translates into revenue generation, tax revenue. And for the FIRS, TIN, you will not be able to do anything without TIN. Now, there's a new regulation that has come out on the withholding tax regulation. Not having TIN means that whoever is dealing with such a person that doesn't have TIN would now have to bear some brunt, because the person that doesn't have TIN will suffer twice the amount is supposed to be deducted from them. And so if you're dealing with them, you have to force them to say, please, give me your TIN. Otherwise, I can't deal with you. I can't be suffering, because if you don't accept, then that means I'll be punished. The penalty I'm going to pay will be twice the amount I'm supposed to have deducted. So on the FIRS side, they already have a platform to manage this issue around TIN and revenue generation, because they've seen the impact this has caused. But I believe that this one that we're talking about, that we talk much about, is going to help the states, especially all the state revenue that have not been looking into individuals that are doing business, informal sector, that have not been looking into individuals that are doing business. A lot of people do some side hustles that are taxable activities, and they are not within the net. So once this issue come up, those things will now become into the limelight. But it now requires each of these states to have a robust system that will make tax compliance seamless, and people will not be running away. Because what makes people to want to invade is when the system are too complicated, it's too strenuous, and they are not getting the best of their expectation from the system.
Taxable activities. I'm tempted to ask, so somebody who has people in the diaspora will know that diaspora remittances in Nigeria is one way that helps people to live these days. The person doesn't have a job, but receives some remittances from the diaspora. Is that non-taxable activities, or activities that would not have been taxed? But with the TIN now, it means that once the state sees what comes into people's accounts, some resources can now be taxed.
Okay, when you talk about diaspora remittances, we need to also clarify. Let's assume my mom is in Nigeria and I'm in the UK, and I send money for her to feed. It's not an income for her, because she's not working. It's not an economic activity. So, but if I've done something, I've provided a service for someone, and the person is seated in diaspora and is sending those remittances to me, I need to be able to, because what it means now with the TIN is that once the inflow comes, I should be able to explain what it is for. And that is where the issue is going to start happening. How best will the tax authorities be able to identify the ones that are taxable from the ones that are not taxable? So it means that everything that comes into your account will have to now explain it as much as you can. Now, this happened to some people. I have an experience with someone who got inflows into his account out of, we call it feeding allowance that he gets. His children gives him, and that comes in. And then they said, look, you have this inflow, so you pay it. And he said, sorry, I'm a retiree. I'm not getting any income. And this is what I used to eat. And he has to get some confirmation from his children that is feeding allowance. is not income to him. Because when we talk about taxable income, and the law also defines that. But I know there are some amendments to the law now that is trying to now bring in some other things into what should be taxed. But we need to differentiate between whether what should be taxed should be economic activity based or just normal upkeep. Because if I'm getting money for my upkeep, and then you're saying I have to pay tax, so the question is, what economic activity have I performed to be able to say it's an income that is taxable? So those are some of the things that I think going there, because I know things like bettings, winnings are going to come. But for those ones, I've performed an activity, I've gone to the betting room, I've gone to bet, and I won. For some, I put one activity as taken, but this one, no activity, is just to keep my body and soul together. So there needs to be a clear distinction between what is taxable and what is not. And this will be a big question that people will now start answering when this issue about TIN comes in, because you have to explain everything that comes to your account. And it also means that you have to be narration of transactions in your account has to be very clear, so that it's quite identify what is taxable and not. And the tax authorities should not just assume and say everybody is in the same category. Because when you now take everything that comes in and you say, as long as it's inflow into your account, it is taxable, it is wrong. So you need to differentiate between what is taxable as defined by the law and what is not taxable. And in definition of what is taxable, the law should also be careful in identifying when somebody is performing an economic activity and when there are inflow that doesn't relate to economic activity. And the other part of it is that this will also help to identify illicit flows. Because once you are unable to explain where your flows are coming from, which job you're doing to get such huge flows, then it calls for question. And that brings in the inquiry of what you're doing and how you've been able to get that income. So a lot is going to be unraveled with the TIN thing coming up, especially when you talk about diaspora funding. We have the legitimate ones, we have the ones that are illegitimate, which will be reviewed as time goes on. And we have the ones that are just for people to maintain, put their body and soul together and eat and have food on their table. So this needs to be very distinguished rather than just putting everybody in the pocket and saying tax should be paid on them. Thanks.
All right, Dr. Titilayo Fowokan, we just have to let you go now. We'll let you have an important meeting after now. But we must thank you for taking time, to have this conversation with us. Thank you so much for your thoughts and giving us this attention at this important time. Thank you so much. And we hope you have a successful meeting.
Thank you very much. Thanks. And have a lovely day and have a week ahead. Thank you.
All right. We're still doing the issue of, teen blessing.
To just tell you ahead of time, even before this bill goes through. The products I was talking about that you have in your pockets.
Yeah.
When you want to gift me some part of it, the narrations, please specifically state.
Says a gift. So why are you afraid now?
I'm just thinking, with every bill, sometimes the implications of the bills are not clearly understood by people. But as you get deeper into the issue, you begin to see other things. That sometimes things that were taken for granted, when a new bill or a new policy comes on board, you may not be able to take them for granted anymore. Imagine narration where people just send money and not even adding anything to it. You don't describe what the money is meant for. You just send it like that. And sometimes you're wondering, why does the bank need me to narrate why I'm making a transaction? Now we're beginning to see why those things are important, because that's when that bill scales through, will be the distinction between what is taxable and what is not taxable, because then the tax authorities will be able to see clearly what comes into your bank account.
It will interest you to know that there's a proposed fine attached or penalty attached to these as proposed by the bill. Now, for the first month, it's going to require 50,000, and anyone who fails to comply with this, according to the bill now. So you're going to pay 50,000 for the first month. Then the subsequent months, you're going to pay 25,000. So it means if in the period of 6 months you didn't comply with this directive, the first month you pay 50,000 naira, and then the remaining 5 months you pay 25,000 naira per month. So if you look at that, the essence of doing this is also to encourage people to be responsible in terms of transactions, to provide the right identity. But you know, like what Dr. Fowokan said, which I've personally experienced it, is the bottleneck, you know, the process of getting this TIN. You know, the last, like, if I may narrate my own experience, the last time I had to apply, it took me weeks.
I had some experience. Because
Yeah.
you're wondering, like, why should it take such a long time for you to obtain TIN?
Yeah, the manual way you have
You make
to
registration and then they tell you the number has not been released. You wait for a while before eventually you get the number. It's just burdensome. It's almost the same process as you trying to get a national identity number.
Exactly.
You go, you register, and then you're waiting for the number to be released. They tell you Abuja hasn't sent the number. And you're wondering, really? Does it take a long process?
No, this is something
that
can be automated. Instead of getting to visit an office to submit your documents, the right documents and whatever data you need, it can be done, you know, virtually, where you have a portal where you put all these details. And then some states are looking in that direction, or they're doing that already. But when it comes to an important exercise like this, or a bill making it mandatory for individuals or Nigerians to do this, you can imagine the volume of demand, you know, on the portal, on the services of those officials who are in their offices. So there's a need to eradicate the manual way of doing this and automate it to make it easier. So it means at the comfort of my home, I can upload my documents, provide the right data, and then someone will look into that and send me a message. So if it is ready, if the certificate is ready, if the number is ready, you send it to me. I don't need to visit the office. So it raises this idea of man-to-man interaction, and it makes it more flexible. Then another challenge has to be the issue of data, you know, how to synergize data, whereby to also verify if what a particular person has provided is correct. So these are issues that need to be addressed before this bill will become something to go by. These are other factors that need to be looked into so that it won't create the usual bottleneck associated with this kind of exercise. You remember the experience when we wanted to get a BVN, where people had to visit banks, you had to queue. Like somebody jokingly said, in Nigeria, you queue for virtually for everything in Nigeria. So I hope this will not arise, and that's why it's important. Why you're looking at proposing a bill like this, there are consequences to it, which is why it's important to put these things in place so that when this thing becomes reality, it makes it seamless, it makes it easier for Nigerians. It won't be another invitation to headache.
Yes, I agree that it should be a seamless process. But if the intention or one of the reasons for the mandatory tax identification number for account opening is to know transactions that people are having for security and all, then I think that's one too many. There is the BVM, which Dr. Fowokan has talked about. There is the NIN. So what else do we need if we keep coming with more and more requirements so that fraud can be checked? It just seems like, oh, so with all that has been given, not enough has been done with it. And so there need for more layers of protection, so to speak, for account or to prevent fraud. That's on one hand. Then on the other hand, when you make a law and then you say if people do not comply, there will be fine. This is a contract between the government and the people. Citizens have a duty to pay their tax. It's obligational for citizens to pay their tax. It is also obligational for governments to provide services that the citizens need from taxpayers' money. So if the bill is going to penalize those who do not comply, what is the penalty for government when they do not provide the services for which the citizens are paying?
So this is what is usually obtainable. When you have a bill like this, it's usually subjected to readings in the House. That's why you have first, second, even third reading. And this is
like it should be more than first and second reading.
Well,
there should be engagement of the public.
Yeah, the point is
it's a lot of implications.
Yeah, that's exactly the essence of that kind of process. Give room for stakeholders to have debate on the bill. Stakeholders being those who are particularly going to be affected by this bill, which are largely represented by the lawmakers in the House. They are expected to speak on behalf of the people. Then also the practitioners involved in this industry to also view.
You see me smiling at you. Ask me why.
What to do? I'm sounding like an advocate here. All right.
You say the citizens are represented by those in the House. But maybe more representation is needed at this time by those who are not in the House.
They are likely represented, or ought to be likely represented.
Maybe we need whole representation this time, not large
So what I'm trying to paint in essence is that's why it has to be debated. You look at all the sides. On the sides of someone will argue for federal inland revenue, someone will argue for individuals in Nigeria who are going to be likely affected by this. So it's important when you have a bill like this to paint all the sides, look at what will be the implication to all the parties and the stakeholders that are involved in this. But interestingly, still a bill. It's not yet passed into law. So still room for review, amendments, which is why we're having this kind of conversation to see how we can shape the policy, or before it becomes a policy, how we can shape the bill so that it comes out properly.
Now, the good thing is you watching, you have a role to play. What's your thought on this? Please get over to our social media platforms and leave a comment. What's your take on this bill? What are your recommendations on it? You can leave a comment, and then we will continue the conversation, of course, when we get your reactions on this subsequently, even as the bill is still in consideration at the National Assembly. I'm blessing Eichie. Thank you especially for making it a duty to continue early exchange with us this week. Tomorrow will be another time, 8 a.m. West African time. And our handle is at Soup News TV on all social media platforms. Do enjoy your day.
And definitely the conversation continues on all our social media platforms. Don't forget, Market Insight comes up at 11. You need to stay for that. That's where we give you the latest development as regards trends in the market globally. And don't forget, early exchange will always return tomorrow bigger and better. Thanks for watching. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.